I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Big Book Compendium's Common Solution Workshop. So I'm going to start off with a really cool poem, and it's written by a guy named Charles C. Finn, and it's called "Please Hear What I Am Not." It says, "Don't be fooled by me. Don't be fooled by the face I wear, for I wear a mask, 1,000 masks. Masks I'm afraid to take off. None of them is me. Pretending is my second nature. I give you the impression that I am secure, that all is sunny, that confidence is my name and coolness is my game, that I am calm and in command, that I need no one. But don't believe me, don't be fooled. My surface may seem smooth, but my surface is my mask, ever changing, ever concealing. Beneath it lies confusion, fear, and lies. But I hide this. I don't want anyone to know. I panic at the thought of my weaknesses being exposed. That's why I frantically create a mask to hide behind, a nonchalant, sophisticated facade to help me pretend, to shield me from the glance of the one that knows. So I play my game, a desperate game, a facade of a parade of masks. My life is a front. I love that poem. It's straightforward and it's great for, looking at fears. It kind of sets the tone. And I really get it because, we all have worn masks at times. We put it on to keep people from knowing us. We don't want them to know about us, to cover up the real us, so to speak, and and how we're feeling. So, people do not, we don't want people to know how we feel inside. So our main focus is always to keep our external life to be in order, give it the appearance, and making sure that the world sees a person. It's kind of has it all figured out. My question is this: so, what does your mask say about you? What do you gain by wearing it? But most important, what do you gain by removing it? And tonight we're going to look at the first step at removing fear, and that's the fear inventory. So, back on page 63, it says, the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will-run riot. He usually doesn't think so. The fact is, we don't think so is why we're doing inventory. We don't think, these resentments are that big a deal. We don't think, but are we pretending that? We need to become aware of our instincts and what they do. If we do not, we say, stuck in the self-will. And that's self-will is the problem. It's instincts, same thing. If self-will stays the problem, our problems will keep piling up on them, and we'll just be a reflection of self-will. It's, and self-will will always control us. Remember, self-will cannot overcome self-will. Just like a scared mind, a fearful mind can overcome fear. But we try to do that. How many times have we tried to do that? Remember the 5 common manifestations I mentioned of the spiritual malady, right? And it's resentments. And so the common 5 signs, we call them manifestations, the common 5 signs that you have a spiritual malady: resentments, harms, guilt, fear, and the sex misconduct. And they work like this. Resentment is wrong thinking, so harms will be wrong actions. Guilt is wrong reflection. The sex misconduct, which we go over next week, is wrong behavior. So fear is wrong beliefs. I'll say it one more time. Resentment is wrong thinking. Harm is wrong action. Guilt is wrong reflection. Sex misconduct is wrong behavior, and fear is wrong beliefs. If I live by those wrong beliefs, we will always live those wrong beliefs, so to speak. So one of the most ancient things on fear is from Proverbs. If a man thinketh, so he is. And that is exactly what happens when we're controlled by fear. There's a great book that was read by really closely by early AE members during the flying blind period. The flying blind period was between 35 and 39 when the big book came out. And they read a lot of books. And they still did after that. But it's A Man Thinketh by James Allen. And James, it's a great book to read. I read it, I had to read it a couple times because it's pretty deep. But James Allen said fear, he called fear mental infection. And he said fear is the worst kind of fears. It's kind of similar to what Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, the only thing to fear is fear itself, meaning the more fear I begin to have, I start to fear fear. Today they call that overwhelming feeling, anxiety, panic attacks, that you get so much fear, you just, in the Tao Te Ching, that's written by Latouche for the Tao, said, there is no illusion greater than fear. So that illusion does not need to be our master anymore. Fear no longer, not with these inventory that we have that we can do. Fear no longer has to direct or control our thinking. We have the tools. We have the tools. A wise man I heard told me one time, if you try to get rid of fear without knowing why you have it, it will grow stronger. So it's not just knowing you have fear, it's knowing why you have it. And that's what the third column of the inventory is for. So, simply being aware of it isn't enough. We have to recognize what's driving it. And once we know what's driving it, fear starts to lose its power. It's kind of like a leaf blowing against a strong wind, it loses its depth and weight. So for, to do that, of course, I mentioned we have, fear inventory. It wasn't until I walked this spiritual path that I became aware of the true power of fear. I saw that fear, it dominated my thinking so much that I made insane, crazy decisions. I feared people would know things about me that I wanted to keep hidden. And ironically, there were bad, disturbing stuff. And I protected the bad and disturbing stuff because of fear. Fear no longer dominates me anymore. I learned that by identifying my fears and discovering why I have them was extremely important to overcoming them. I'm at peace with myself, and I owe that to fear inventory. One thing I want to say, the two most important things about fear inventory is, number one, starting it on step 4 and continuing it in step 10, right? It's very important because that's what's going to come up the most. So, you hear the 4th step described a lot as, people act like it's this exhausting process, like it's some workout or something. You hear that in meetings a lot, because many think step 4 is like it's kind of like cleaning your room, so to speak. And, it's not it, but it's like their version of cleaning the room is just reorganizing, rearranging the same old stuff to make it look clean, and and then finding new ways to deal with it. So that's a total falsehood. Step 4 is like cleaning a room, but it's not about rearranging the same old crap. It's about getting rid of the old crap, getting rid of the old junk. It's a building process so we can let go of the junk in step 6, and 4 and 5 are those tools. So it's not an exhausting process, it's a liberating process. Don't let anyone scare you. No one ever got hurt by doing inventory. So this is about finding a new way of life, not holding on to the old one and putting a new frame on it. God's not at the same time, God's not the switch that you just turn on and everything's grand. No, we must, create, it tells us in this book that God's within us, and we must clear that channel to God. It's kind of like, I call it like the rain gutter effect. Like, we have bad rain here today. I had to go up on my ladder and clear some of the rain gutter out today because it was pouring right by my office. And once I cleared it, it was a clear channel to the drain. We're no different. We just have to get and do the work like that. I could have looked out there and said, I don't want to do it today, but it was annoying. So we must be open to creating that clear channel. The only way I know is steps 4 through 9. So step 4 is fear is all over the 4-step process. First of all, we inventory our fears. It's a fearless moral inventory, right? The last column of step 4 says frightened. And there's a difference between having fear and frightened. Frightened is a state of fear, like I mentioned earlier, constant state of fear. Page 52 called it full of fear. On page 65, fear is bracketed next to certain, next to the instincts, which we'll talk about in a bit, because it motivates those instincts. And I've explained this before. When I get resentments, my instincts are hurt or threatened, right? And when I harm someone, I try to satisfy those hurt instincts. Well, the question is, what's going on in between resentment and harms? When you get a resentment and you harm someone, how about before you have a resentment, after you have a resentment, in between that and the harms, what's going on? Fear. And what is fear of common with resentment? Our instincts are threatened. We think we're going to lose something, right? And my suggestion tonight, as we're going through this, is anything that stirs the mind. I don't care how much long you've been around this. If you're brand new, if you've been around forever, if all of a sudden I mention something about a fear or a way to look up fear, write it down. It can't hurt. So when if you relate, have the light bulb thing go off, write it down. So what exactly is fear? So it's the simplest way to say it is it's a basic survival mechanism. And that basic survival mechanism, it's pre-programmed into all animals and us. And the reason for it is for an instinctual response to potential danger. Potential danger, right? Notice the word danger. Animals deal with those threats, to survive, they react in fear and different, with a automatic discharge of either fight or flee, fight or flight, fight or run away. And we react the exact same way, but we do something animals don't do. We freeze. We freeze. We'll do nothing when fear comes up. So animals, run or fight. We run or fight, but we also freeze. It's easier that way. So what happens to the body when we have fear? I'm talking it from a natural standpoint. The first thing that happens to us is our nervous system automatically puts the body on alert. So the adrenal cortex automatically releases stress hormones, a lot of them, thousands. And the heart automatically beats harder and faster. That makes our breathing more rapid. The thyroid gland stimulates metabolism. Our veins construct, sending more blood to the major muscle groups. Larger muscle groups automatically receive more oxidized blood, sending more oxygen to the lungs and beating even harder. That's a natural response to fear, impending danger, to help you survive a situation, dangerous situation, like hanging off a cliff or drowning. Anyone here almost drowned? All those things kick into gear, right? Dangerous situation. If we live in fear and let fear run our life, from what I'm showing you, we're putting not just our sanity at risk, but our body at risk as well. Our bodies are not meant to live in fear. So, oh, by the way, my kids got me a coffee mug for Christmas. Dad to the bone. You gotta love that. So, we live in fear. So it's like fear is not always bad. That's the one thing I want to put out there. There's a stigma that fear is bad. It's like instincts. They can be used properly and can improve quality of life. So for instance, if I see a mountain lion and I'm on a hike, I'm not going to wave to it. I'm bolting. If I see a snake, I'm going to move out of the way. So, fear makes me do that. It pushes us to work harder, to get to the next level. to do our best on the job. It prompts us to save money. It pushes us to be on time when we're running a little bit late. It speaks up for us. It gets us up in the morning. How about this? What gets us healthy? What makes us go on a diet? Fear. What makes us start an exercise regime? Fear. What makes us take vitamins? Fear. Right? It pushes you to work harder no matter what you do. And most important, fear propels us to take action. So the fact is, fear is necessary for survival. Without we wouldn't be complete human beings. So when fear is used incorrectly, here's some things that happen. It becomes destructive and works against us, and it influences negatively, mentally, emotionally, socially, financially, spiritually. And that causes those unpleasant feelings of anxiety, distress, despair, misery, phobia. How about low self-esteem? How about high self-esteem? You think you're better than people, low you feel less than, loneliness, and even depression. Think about what fear says to you. Just think about that for a second. You're not good enough. You're worthless. You can't do this. I can't make this deadline. Oh my God, I'm stupid. How did you screw up again? Why did you say that? They won't listen. What would you do if a person walked up to you and said the negative things to your face that your fear tells you? Think about that. What would you do to that person if that person came up to you and says, hey, you're worthless. You can't make it. You're no good. All the stuff that our fear tells us. Negative fear. What would we do? We'd be pretty pissed off. What fear does is it prevents us from experiencing life, dictating our actions, preventing us from taking action, freezing us, like I mentioned earlier, to do nothing. But it holds me back from making important life-changing decisions. Meaning fear can stand in the way of change, such as ending a relationship or quitting a job, getting sober, doing the steps, turning your life over to care of God. Fear of doing step 4, discussing with another person. How about making amends or sponsoring? Fear gets in the way. The only reason a person is a sponsor is fear. Or they don't make amends is fear. And they say, what if that happens? It's fear. Those fears that prevent us is just based on theory. Means it's theory is anything I've never experienced. Anything I don't know, I'm going to base it on that. And it's a what ifs. There's an old Zen saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. We've all heard that before. Now, the teacher can be in the form of another person. It can be in the form of a book. It can be in the form of a spiritual program of action, like the steps. Anything that shows up in front of you in your life that offers you change. But if you're not ready, if you're stuck at the fork in the road, if you're in fear, letting fear dictate your life, your decisions to try new things, you won't do it. And, we won't move into change. Meaning fear takes us away from pursuing our ideals. Now we'll go into ideals in great detail next week, but an ideal it's this principle and value that's embedded within me, with love and happiness. It's all in there. And ideals are. So it's a principle or value within me that when actually pursued leads to expansion and growth. It's what you want to do in your life. Has fear ever prevented you from pursuing your ideals? Doing what your heart wants you to do? That dream job, that ideal job. A person comes up to me and says, I hate my boss. I hate my job. Better one, I hate my job. And I say, what do you do? And they tell me what they did. And I ask them, is it really what you want to do? It's never what they want to do. When you ask them why they're not pursuing that dream job, it's always fear. Fear dictates change and keeps us stuck at the fork in the road. Let me show you this slide. The fork in the road. It's one of my favorite ones. Oops. Give me 1 second. Oh, technical difficulties. I'm going the wrong way. No wonder. There it is. Now I'll get there. This is what stuck at the fork in the road looks like. You have life-changing decision on the left. Just keep doing what you're doing on the right. Fear keeps us stuck there. Or it could be two decisions: keep my job or quit my job. I don't know what to do. That's what we do. Do the steps, don't do the steps. I'm not, Yogi Berra, the famous baseball player, said, if you're at the fork in the road, take it. And we stand there so long that change flies right past us. By the time we think about doing it, it's no longer available. We stand at that fork. And think what fear does to your social instincts. Fear, it prevents us from interacting with other people, right? Pride, what other people think of us. So we avoid social situations, and we keeps us from speaking up and makes us believe the world's against us. So it creates a negative aura about us as well when we live in fear. That's the atmosphere we create, what makes people want to be around us. So it can be put our true personality on hold, causing us to wear that mask and become something we're not. So since fear causes us to avoid interacting with other people, it causes us to isolate as well. Like resentment, it allows others to control us. And think about financial. Think about financial for a second. Financial security is a huge fear. Insecurity, I'll call it. And what that can lead us to is eventually, if you don't think of it, money, greed, resentment, blaming on other people for not doing the right, harm, guilt, dishonesty. But fear, another way to look at it, it distracts us from our focus, sidetracking in the task at hand, so to speak, causing us to make a mountain out of molehills, and we panic and we fail to make the right decisions. But most of all, fear takes us out of the present, out of the moment, because we live in the now. We need to be in the now. When fear keeps us stuck in the future, it's called dread. That's called dread, anticipating that something bad's going to happen way out here, causing us to avoid a situation. So we get caught up in outcomes that haven't happened yet. Fear of losing my job, losing a relationship, losing my house, or my health, my health getting bad, or fear of not having enough money in 3 weeks or 3 months. Over anticipation of things that haven't happened yet. How many times have you feared, oh my God, that big bill's coming in 4 months, and then it just comes and goes, it works out fine, but we're afraid of it. So when fear keeps us stuck in the past, it's called guilt, which is a deep regret for a past wrong action. You've heard the term eating me up inside. That's guilt. The secrets, talked about a little bit last week, but it's letting others know, we need to let others know, we need to look at it. But dread is fear of the future, and guilt's fear of the past. That takes us out of the present. Where do we connect to God? In the now, in the present. That's why it's a gift. And fear robs us of our peace of mind. So overcoming fear produces what? Peace of mind. Who doesn't want peace of mind? Who doesn't want freedom from self? But most importantly, fear effectively blocks us off from the sunlight of spirit. That spirituality means there's no way to be one with God and live in healthy fear at the same time. Let's go to page 67. So it says, notice the word fear. It's bracketed alongside Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, and the employer and his wife. So let's go there. Let's go to 65 and let's look at that real quick. I'll put it up on the screen. So if you look on here, I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. We know that attention to his wife, but look at the instincts. Right? I said fear motivates the instincts. Look, it's bracketed next to self-esteem. It's really all of them. Self-esteem again, self-esteem again. Oops. But it's bracketed alongside those things. Security down here. That's what fear does. It motivates these instincts. It's like the oil that makes the car go, the engine go, that motivates them. So back to 67. It says this short word somehow touches about every aspect. That's every part. Aspect means part of our lives. It's an evil corroding thread. So something that's evil, is morally wrong and harmful, right? Corroding is a gradual, slow decline where something deteriorates and breaks. That's corroding, falls apart. So in essence, fear is harmful because it deteriorates us. The fabric of our existence was shot through it. It set in motion trains of circumstances, trains of situations, which brought us misfortune that we felt we didn't deserve. Again, that's another example of why we're doing inventory. Like I said, self-fulfilling right, even though we didn't think so, we felt we didn't deserve it. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? What sets the ball rolling? Which fear sets the ball rolling? With fear, what sets it in motion? I'm going to put it up here on the screen. And we looked at this, we did a whole lesson on this. Instincts. Oops, that's the wrong one. Put the wrong one up there. Sorry, there's my kid. I don't have the instincts chart up there, but it's the self-esteem, the pride, the personal relations, all that stuff. All that stuff. I might be able to find it real quick. Give me 1 second. There we go. I had the wrong sheet in there. Oops. All right. Back to our regular scheduled program. All right. So the thing is look at so fear's bracket, next to all these instincts. Pride, my view of the stink of me, right? Now, that's a fear. Someone cracks a joke or says something bad, or I show up to the room, maybe I don't look healthy. I start worrying what people are thinking of me, and that can drive me to isolate. High self-esteem, I think I'm better than other people. That is many times caused by fear. Low self-esteem, I'm not good enough, I screwed up again. Personal relations are affected by fear. Now, in sex, of course, sex relations too. But let's look at this one, security. Because many think the biggest instinct associated with fear is pride. It's actually, I believe the main culprit of fear is security, emotion and material, pocketbook and emotional, right? And what is security? It's safe. It's that feeling of being safe from danger. You want to feel secure in your heart. And what makes human beings feel safe and protected? Security. It's so emotional security is a stability with yourself and others, but here's the thing: when emotional security is misdirected, what happens? We get nervous, we get angry with defensive reactions. The most common emotional insecurities is self-pity and deep anxiety, fear. And when we live in anxiety, the result is depression. And that's a feeling of low mood, feeling helpless, hopeless, worthless, and affects my own activities. I suffer from that for years. Thanks to the steps I overcame that. And then there's the pocketbook, material security. Things we need for survival, right? Things we need for survival. And I can hear it says money, property, employment, cars, etc. All the stuff we think we need, right? When misdirected, we believe we need more, and we run over others to get what we need, and we fear we never have enough. So we pursue beyond our needs because we fear we don't have it. So we go, broke and bankrupt. So we pursue, we take down others with us, and we become dishonest. Especially when people ask you, "Are you okay?" No, you're not gonna. And a lot of times we're dishonest with our answers. I'm fine, but fear of not having enough leads to resentment and then harm. And who gets, and that gets in the way of our material needs. Then results we're not satisfied. But many believe, we need security to beat fear. That's not true. If you do things a certain way, if I'm calm, if I pause myself at the right time, or maybe it's saving the right amount of money so you'll feel security. You're not going to get security from having money. What if you run into financial hardship? Some think they'll have enough security with a high-paying job. What if the job ends? Others think it's by being in this perfect relationship where the relationship ends. So there's no such thing as security outside of ourselves. That's the illusion. So the physical world creates no security, only fear. So there's only one kind of security, inner security. And that inner security is directed towards the person with trust. And it's from the spirit within us. That's the real security. That's the real security. So that's where the instincts, how they drive us and what they do. And that's the thing about it is we can be caught up in instincts our whole life. We can be totally stuck in instincts. And thank God for inventory. Thank God. So sometimes we think, back to the book, it says, sometimes we think fear ought to be classified with stealing. It seems to cause us more trouble. It robs us of our security, right? Our relationship with God and others prevents us from reaching our full potential. A question I've been asked for many years is to clarify what kinds of security, what kind of fears we're looking at in step 4. And I'm just getting this slide ready. And I love to get to the root of the things. I classify them as 2 different groups. Physical fears outside ourselves, and mental emotional fears, which there's more within us. So physical fears are the ones we physically see. Fear of heights, fear of snakes, fear of spiders. These fears are easy to identify, easy to diagnose, and very easy to manage. If I see a snake, I get out of the way. If I have fear of heights, I don't go up the ladder. In other words, physical fears are easy to overcome, easy to diagnose, easy to manage. Mental emotional fears are the ones that control our minds. They're not easy to overcome because they're not easy to identify, to diagnose, and manage. They are almost always attached with 3 things: what I might lose, what I may never have, and what others might know about me. What I might lose, what I may never have, what others might know about me. These types of fear rob us of our joy. Fear we might lose something we have. It creates misery in our life when we fear we won't get something that we desperately think we want or need. And we lose sleep over what others might know about us. The 12 and 12, page 76, is one short sentence. The chief activator of our defects has been self-centered fear. Primary fear of what we would lose, something we already possess, or we'd fail to get something we demand. There it is. So, living in mental emotional fears damages our social environment, our security, and our sex life, leading to pain, confusion, upsetting our internal balance. So can fear motivate, see how fear motivates the instincts? That leads to pain, confusion, and that upsets that internal balance of ours, changing the way we think and act. As I said before, The unawareness of our mental emotional fears leaves us forever in the bondage of self instincts. So I like primer sheets, and this is one that I use, and I give the sponsees, especially when they tell me they don't have fear. This is not an inventory sheet. This is a primer sheet, right? Not primer. Primer for paint. Primer for gathering information. So you see, it says what I might lose, what I might ever get or have, and what others might know about me, secrets. So what are some of the examples of things I might lose? My sobriety, my significant other, my kids, my family, my job, my life, my house, my car, money, stuff. And we become aware of what you're afraid of, you might lose. It changes everything because we start to handle it different. Fear of what we may never have. This is more of a low self-esteem aspect. We may never have sanity, God's grace. I may never have this, get the steps down. May never have enough money, the right job, kids, significant other, peace of mind, happiness, free, anger, long-term recovery, being overcome by fear. Here's the thing. It's good. All those things are good if you're praying for them, right? And you're not, and you're giving them with love and not fear. Those two can't exist at the same time. But the last one is the one that scares most people in their boots, what others might find out about us. The things we want others, the things we don't want others to know, the stuff we want to be kept unknown, hidden, unseen. Remember, we're only as sick as our what? Our secrets. And think about, what is the secret? Information to be kept hidden, right? Your grandma said, this is a secret recipe, information, keep it hidden. So this one can go deep. It might be that take it to the grave stuff, the stuff that you protected for whatever reason that no one can ever know about. I had that stuff. Could be a crime you committed. Perhaps you cheated on your wife or husband, have a kid outside of marriage, maybe you had a child when you were a teenager, whatever. Maybe you killed somebody or tried to. It might be a sexuality thing. Maybe you're still using or drinking or fear about the pills you're taking. All sorts of that stuff. I fear people might find the way I really got fired. That's your dishonesty being exposed, right? So that may be one of my fears. Was when I first got to AA, I didn't have a driver's license, and I would drive to meetings and tell I got a sponsor. He says, "What are you doing?" Maybe you're an atheist, or maybe you're a racist. Who knows? I'm just throwing things out there, but it might be less. I've heard all those things, by the way. Not one of those I haven't heard in the fifth step. And it's a lot of times when like a person comes out as like a racist or something like that, they start crying because they don't want to be that. They're starting to realize it's not who they were, but they hid behind it. But it might be less complicated. Like for me, it was learning disabilities, or it could be a disease you have. Things you don't want to know anyone to know about. So you pretend, like when you have a learning disability, what I would do is I didn't want no one to know I had it, so I would pretend I understood everything. In school, I would just familiarize myself with the subjects instead of understanding it. Maybe you just do not want people to know you're alcoholic. These secrets will restrict your life, imprison you, and rob you of your peace of mind daily. So what these are they're all expectations. An expectation is a strong belief about what might or will happen. I can say what might happen in the future. I have expectations that someone's going to treat me right, or give me something, and I don't get it. I get resentment. So it's always connected to resentment. What about fear? It goes with fear. Lots of people, want to call fear false evidence appearing real. I have hated that saying. I don't like false evidence appearing real. I like false expectations appearing real. false expectations appearing real. So if I have a belief that I might lose my kids or my job in the future, that's just expectations. It's false because it hasn't happened yet. You know, the same goes, I mean, we can use healthy fears with that, but not let it run our life. The same goes for what I may never have. I may never, go to college. Again, that's an expectation. You don't know that yet. I know guys who got sober at 35 and 45 are going to college. You never know. The same goes for what people might find out about me. I stole money from somebody. They might find out. Again, expectations. They might. We can't live with this stuff. So I have my sponsees fill this out. And they write down everything they might lose, everything they're afraid they may never get. If they want to put on other stuff, they can. If they're losing sleep over snakes and, swimming, and they can put that on there too. These are the ones that truly eat you away, right? Truly eat you away. So you transfer these ones over to the inventory sheets, and we'll go over that in a second. So page 68, here's a condition. And we reviewed our fears thoroughly. Remember, review means to examine over something. Think about like reviewing for a test, you're examining it, with the intention to possibly change. Thorough means, we hear that's all the place, no stone unturned, means to look over completely careful, not missing a detail. Painstaking. Identifying the fear and discovering why we have is extremely imperative to overcome them. Here is another condition. We must put them on paper. You said it before. So that would be like the first column. We put it on paper. The most important thing with fear, as I said earlier, starting step 4. So it's fear inventory is a lot like sex inventory. It's not about necessarily what you're putting down, but changing and finding a sane ideal for your future. For our sane ideal for our fear life is to not let them run our life. And so I keep doing it. I continue doing it in step 10, getting started and keep doing it. I'm going to put up the fear inventory. It's going to look just like the other ones we've gone over. So we have lists. So what's different here is there's not a column 1 and 2. They used to have that. It would say, what is the fears? Why do you have them? But the reason why we have them is these instincts. So, and people are writing down things like, I have a fear of not having enough money. And then they write in the second column, well, because on my job, and be like a long, long answer. It just keeps it simple. So it's a 3-column inventory here. I'll do an example. So say I fear not staying sober. I didn't have that fear. So I feared relapsing because I was a chronic relapser. And once you have that stigma over your head, you start to it's in the back of your head. Does it affect my personal relations with others? I would say no, but does it affect my self-esteem? It's low, right? It's low. I feel less than. Does it affect my pride? Yeah, I don't want people to know about it. So yeah, so after discovering pride, it would affect my personal relationships. I don't want anyone to know about it. So it kind of goes there. Does it affect my emotional security? You bet you. Doesn't affect these other two, but it affects my ambitions socially, right? Because I'm not in the now. Security wise, and it's selfish and frightened. That's how easy it is, I'll give you a little deeper one I did. So I wrote fear inventory. I wrote fear of people knowing about some robberies I committed. And I wasn't like a, amazing thief or some, robber type thing, but it was more followers, following other people and stuff. But I had to write down every single one that I feared these people would know, because I wasn't in fear of the people who didn't know me. I was in fear of the people who did. And then I would get arrested for it, and all the people that didn't know me would know about it. That was the fears. So I was afraid people was, I'd be found out about these robberies I did, and oh my God, I'm going to go to prison. So in fact, my personal relations with people, yeah, I didn't want to go near certain people. And low self-esteem, pride, emotional security. I would say it affected my material security because I didn't want to work at certain places I could have gone a job at. I had to hide. I lived that life for a long time. And social security, selfish and frightened. I remember telling my grant sponsor that I didn't have fears. And he laughed out loud. He said, "Oh, okay," and he said, I said, "I don't fear anything." So I had that. I don't have fear. I don't have any fears. Ignorance. Like people say, I don't have arms. It's all ignorance. I don't have that fear, ignorance about me. He said, "Well, in your resentments, you resent the IRS." And he asked why I said that. I said, "Because they take people's money." And he asked me, "What's the worst thing the IRS could do to you?" I said, "Take my money." I had to put it down there. And he asked, and then the other thing with it too was another fear popped up. I was being paid under the table. So I had a fear of being caught working under the table. Those are all inventoried. And then he looked at me and he sat there after I looked at those two. He said, he gave me a blank sheet, a piece of binder paper, and he said, "I want you to write down, take some time, write down all the worst things that could happen to you. Make a list of all the things that happened to you." I mean, I was so blind by the tax thing. I mean, I didn't even see it. All the time it got worse. Tax season would come and it was just like, it was insane. But he made me write down all the worst things that could happen to me in certain situations, a blank list. Stuff that had me, I was super concerned with. And I looked over the ones that need to be move over to fear inventory. There was a lot of them. Now it started. If I didn't do that, it wouldn't have clicked the way it did. I was a very complex person, but it was interesting when I did inventory to be an observer, an observer of my thoughts than just a participant of my thoughts. So that's what I got out of the fear inventory. I mean, I was now an observer of my thoughts and not just a participant. Page 68. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? That's an interesting word, self-reliance. What does that mean? Trusting in self. Self-reliance is trusting instincts. That's what that means. Wasn't it because instincts failed us, they're saying, rather than trusting God? Yeah, they failed us. Self-reliance is good as far as it went, but didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it fully didn't solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Over self-confidence, cocky. High self-esteem. When it gave us high self-esteem, it was worse. Arrogance. Page 68. Perhaps there's a better way. We think so. We're now on a different basis. So the different what is a different basis? Is we started writing inventory, not step 3. Some people say the different basis is step 3. No, it's when the pen is to paper. And that's the basis of trusting and relying upon God. That's what happens. So trust in God means having complete faith and confidence in God. Relying on God, complete dependence upon God. So trusting and relying upon God does not mean shutting our eyes to facts and looking the other way and hiding. Trusting gives us the strength to help us know that difficulties will happen and can always be faced and fixed by action. The action of 4 through 9. That action of 4 through 9 anchors us to God. And 4 through 9 is the ultimate action of trusting and relying upon God. So trusting and relying upon God is not a thought. It's an action. How many times do we say, oh, I trust God? But what are you doing to do it? It's an action. Trusting God gives us the strength to see things as they are and helps us see what is and what isn't. Simple. In other words, trusting and relying upon God is absolute faith. What is faith? Faith is without doubt. I learned if I had the littlest amount of doubt, if I just had the teeniest amount of doubt, that is where I'm at. And I'll act upon that doubt for everything. So if I start doubting God, I'm going to start doubting my wife, my kids, my friends, you guys, everything. I'll act upon that doubt. The state of your life is nothing more than a reflection of the state of your mind. And when you trust, you are aligning with the divine. So that's what happens. And then if you're aligning with the divine, your life will reflect that rather than fear. Because we trust infinite God rather than our finite self. So infinite, unlimited, like the circle on the triangle, the circle keeps going, infinite, never ends, without an end or a finish point. Finite means limited, has a beginning and an end. In other words, we trust unlimited God rather than our limited self. We're in the world to play the role he assigns. Remember when we were the actor in Big Book? The actor thinks he's the director, and he's not hired as a director, just to be an actor. The one who, for the outer world, he presents a stage character, the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain rotation, but knows his heart he doesn't deserve it. Page 60, it tells us, later that God is the director. It says on page 63. Maybe we're still an actor in a sense, but now we have the best director possible. Back to 68. Just to the extent that we do as he would think he would have us and humbly rely on him as a condition. That means humbly means without arrogance or pride. Does he enable us to match calamity with serenity? So calamity is an occurrence that causes damage, chaos, suffering, misery. And serenity is a state of being calm, peaceful, untroubled. Go back to 61 real quick. The end of the actor, the very bottom of the actor we're looking at. It says, is he not even in his best moments a producer of confusion rather than harmony? It's the same thing as what I just, serenity, chaos, confusion. Harmony is a state of being blissful, peaceful, confusion, disorder, calamity, chaos. So above, what it said was, he enables us to match calamity with serenity. In our best moments in the past, without God, we were still a producer of confusion rather than harmony. What they are saying here is on instincts. And at my best, I was confused with confusion rather than harmony. Go back to 68. Humbly rely on him. That was, with God. Does he enable me to match calamity with serenity? What does match mean? It means to see something as equal or similar. So I know what road to take. They're not stuck, at that fork in the road, causing more calamity. In other words, God puts calamity and serenity side by side for me. My awareness, I'm not distracted by fear and resentment as much. I can actually look at my calamity and my serenity. God, you can have all of me, good and bad. Right? Because we never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality is a way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is a way of strength. The verdict of the ages means faith means courage. They trust their God. All men of faith have courage. Courage is the power to face fear. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. This is the bread and butter of our program right here. This might be the most important line you'll read, because this is where we want to be on a daily basis in the future. Is to let God demonstrate to us. It also says if we have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, to let God remove our defects of character, right? Let God means to allow. Let means to allow or permit. A spiritual condition to let God to receive God. We got to let God. We got to open the door and let God in. We will talk about that when we get to step 6 more. And I would say the goal of step 10 is to always let God demonstrate to us what you can do. Think about that for a second. Here's the fear prayer. We ask him to remove our fear. So this is part of step 6, almost like to remove our fear and direct our attention to what you have us be. Be means to indicate our true individuality. It's a very simple prayer. I want to be love. I want to be kind. I want to be honest. What you want to be, what do you want to be? If fears are present, you're not going to find that, But when you don't have fear, look what can happen. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. At once means immediately outgrow. Outgrow means to move away from, right? Why do you keep anything you outgrow? Like, you keep your kids' clothes laying around? No, we give them to somebody. We give them away. We move away from fear by taking action 4 through 9. So to be aware, we go deep and know what the root of our fears are: pride, self-esteem, security. And the more aware we are, we bring to the path, we discover something in the path called fearless. So fearless is the goal. Fearless. Fearless. Fearless does not mean we have no fear. It simply means you have the ability and the strength within to face them and to get the right guidance to face them. And once we face them, we can manage them better when they occur in the future. So when we have the ability to manage them, we eventually outgrow them, meaning fear is no longer distracting us. It is at that point you will discover what you want to do in life is what God wants you to do in life. There's no fear in that. There's no fear. And when we discover what God wants us to do in life, what do we discover? What do we experience? Love. Two of the most influential powers that could possibly, energy forces in this universe, are fear and love. And life's biggest decisions stem from these two polar opposites, fear or love. There's a book called Course in Miracles. It says in the end, there are really only 2 emotions. One is love and the other is fear, meaning life is built on a foundation of fear or love, but you cannot have both. Anything that is love cannot be fear, and anything that is fear cannot be love. Think about that. It's pretty deep. The truth is, we learn more on fear than we do love. We trust fear more because, there are many roads to fear and very few roads to love. So fear is easier to receive, than to have love. We must do some work to get love. We must examine our fears, discuss them with others, let them go. And as then you realize, that we're not these bodies, we're not our accomplishments. We're not what other people think of us. We're not separate from anyone like our ego tells us. What happens is we awaken to the fact that we are a piece of God. which is pure love. And with that love, all things are possible because love and God are synonymous. Fear is only present when we forget that we are a part of God's divine design. I'll share my experience with this really quick. So this is my experience. So when I was a kid, it took me to, I didn't figure this out what I'm going to share with you until I did the steps and experience, and I understood what I experienced my whole life. So growing up, I stuttered profusely. I was dyslexic, and I always feared being called upon in class, especially in front, in front of the other people, or going up front. So I was always nervous in class. And in 6th grade, we were told we had to do an oral report. And I remember being terrified the whole school year until I found I could do a written report. And that was the thing. So I got out of it. But then in the 7th grade, I discovered that my sister, who was in the 11th grade, she tells me in 11th grade, you're going to have to do it in history class. You're going to have to do a 15-minute oral report. I immediately had fear. And I was only in the 7th grade. The summer before my 11th grade, I had horrible anxiety when I thought about it. That feeling when you replay it in your head and you think about it and it just kind of, oh. And the night before doing it, I was so terrified, I felt sick. I remember lying in my bed and I couldn't get any sleep. And, sitting through 2 or 3 students, I was even more nervous. And when I got up to talk, I was shaking so bad that some of the kids laughed. But when I opened my mouth to speak in front of the class, something happened that I didn't see coming. I found myself at ease. I went into this other zone where there was no fear. I didn't realize that until looking back years later in inventory of what had happened. It's almost like a spiritual experience. But I realized I was actually quite good at it. And from then on, I would always get a good grade, and students and teachers would, want my feedback or want me to help them with their reports and stuff like that. And matter of fact, for extra credit, I would do oral reports. So I would actually do oral reports instead of a written report. This was a fear I had my whole life. And when I faced it, it was gone. When I had that fear, I didn't feel love for myself and what I was doing. I was an idiot. I can't do that. But the moment I opened my mouth, I felt more love than I ever felt in my life. I didn't know what it was, again, until I was spiritually awoke. That is why I say fear is usually just telling us to do something. What's interesting, when I got 2 years sober, I fell in love with speaking in front of groups like this one. I do it because I always feel love. If I did it, why would I do it? I've spoken in front of 300 people before. It's quite the shift. I still get nervous when I speak, not like it used to be. It's not as deep and dark. It's more like butterflies. But the second I start, open my mouth, I fall into that zone. And people always go, man, you start smiling as soon as you speak. And I'm like, because I'm in that zone. Before I do this group, sometimes I'm like, I get that. That's what I mean when I say love is the absence of fear. One thing an old timer shared with me a long time ago, and I never forget it, and it's pretty cool. I had a 10 years sober, and I was a 15-minute speaker before the main 45-minute speaker, and that's the old timer. And we're waiting backstage, and there's like 500 people there. I'm not kidding. It's a roundup. And I turn to him and I go, hey, do you get nervous before you speak? And he goes, son, with a big smile on his face, the moment you don't, you better check yourself, because being nervous before you speak is just God getting your game face on. It's 100% right. So many of us fear the unknown, staying only with what we are familiar with rather than moving to new adventures to explore. Einstein said the most beautiful thing in the world are the most mysterious. Yet we get afraid of the mysterious rather than wandering into this unknown things and new adventures. We stay only with what we've always known, and that keeps us stuck where we're at. Don't fear. Don't let fear take you away from the mysterious. All right, we're going to do a deep meditation here. So it's more of an exercise meditation for fear. Jason better be in here still. Oh, there he is. Cool. I'm just kidding. All right, so close your eyes, get to your spot, put your feet on the floor, whatever you do. Sit up nice and straight. And do that breathing a little bit like we did at the beginning. Breathe in slowly. Get to that ease. Now I want you to ask yourself this question. What do I really want to do in my life? This is something you haven't done. I'm not talking about your bucket list or skydiving or something. What you really want to do in your life. Something you feel you have to do. Something you must do. Maybe it's asking for a raise, quitting your job, starting a brand new career. Maybe it's purchasing a house for the first time. Maybe it resolves around a relationship, moving to a higher level, like marriage, or ending. Maybe it's that dream job. Maybe it's having kids. Maybe it's making amends. Maybe it's sponsoring. Let's focus on that again. What is it you really want to do in your life? Give it a minute. Now ask yourself, why haven't I done that? Is fear the reason? Ask yourself, which instinct is holding you back? Pride? Is it high self-esteem? Maybe low self-esteem, personal relations, emotional security. Perhaps it's material security, such as more money. Maybe it has nothing, maybe it has to do with sex relations. What instinct is it that's holding you back? So you're going to stay doing the things you don't want to do, or you're going to be ready to discover what you truly can accomplish by overcoming fear. And open your eyes. Why is that important? Because that right there are the things that most people drink over. Those things, those tough decisions, staying in a bad marriage, getting in a thing, all that stuff, the things I want to do. Maybe you do want to climb a mountain, you know. Says that, but that's the stuff that we drink over is the pieces of the puzzle that aren't missing, and fear takes us away. Is it the thing that actually not doing the thing that actually makes us drink again? No. It's the fact you're holding on to fear and there's no love. Again, where there is fear, there's no love. Closing prayer. This is a version of the fear prayer. God, as I begin my new life of trusting and relying upon you, please show me the way of courage and strength so I can discover the fears that stand between us. Please help me outgrow my fears so you can direct my attention to what you have me be. Amen. Next week, we'll look at sex conduct.